Okay, here is the scansion. Let's see if we can get this thing to lock in. Um, I think this is right. All right, so first out of the way. All right, here's what I gave you. And I guess I should start off by apologizing because this is kind of a pickle, and I kind of gave you a much harder chunk than and the good news is it's harder probably than what you're gonna have on the test. I mean, it's definitely harder, but remember always, okay, your rules, nuggets and gravy. Come on. All right. Always do this in pencil. Notice I'm doing this in erasable pen, also works. Okay, so you know that the last 2 feet are going to be your dactyl spondy, so you can always start there. You need to scan for elisions and diphthongs. I do not see any elisions, but there is a diphthong right there. Now we know that once we do that, we are going to mark off all the ones that are long by position. So look for any vowels that are marked or long. Let me try that again. Look for any vowels that are followed by 2 or more consonants. Remember, X always counts as 2, so that's long. And this also tells us that the E has to be long. Because remember, in the end, your pattern is going to be dactyl or spondy. Okay, and so you cannot have ever a long, short, long in this scansion. Okay, you can have long, short, long, and other, but for this one, this is a hard and fast rule. Okay, that tells me that this is long, which also, by the way, tells me that the E has to be long. Again, because the only way you get a long mark at the end of a line or at the end of the foot is if the next one is long. And that follows because they're followed by 2 or more consonants. And this I is long, which means this A has to be long again, not only because it's an AS, and remember, again, AS and OS, accusative plurals, are typically long, but because the I is forced long. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 feet. We need one more. I have 3 vowels. When you have 3 vowels and you need 1 foot, it's going to be a dactyl. Okay, and you're just going to go like that. All right, so the next line also kind of works out. You're going to do this. Part of what causes this passage to be so ridiculously like tricky is that it's got a bunch of I call them Greek. Mr. Saltz called them Etruscan. It doesn't matter. They're not Latin names. And that does cause things to be a little bit more chaotic. And so some of the rules kind of go shooting out the window. But this doesn't. Okay. I don't even know where the glitter's coming from right now. All right. So you still have your dactyl spondy. Don't worry about where the vowels are placed. Okay. It's a dactyl spondy. Now, the faetra, the TR here. Okay. I think we went over this in class. So this, remember that bad pupils, when you have a BP, bad pupils chew gum during tests, followed by an L or an R, right? Okay, when you have that combo, it equals 1 consonant sound. Consonant sound, not 2. All right, so that's what we have here. The PH counts as 1 because H never counts ever, even when it's like this, but the AE is a diphthong. So we can do that. Oh, I forgot to scan for elisions. Oh, and look, there's a good one here. This is an elision. This UM, remember vowel plus M plus vowel, that's an elision. Ooh, that was a nugget. Okay, and then there's a diphthong. Okay, we can start marking all the ones that are long by position. So this U is gone because of that, but this E is long because it's followed by the X, which is 2 consonants. It's followed by an X and an S, so it's long anyway. Let's see, can I get this thing to focus better? No, not really. All right, we're just gonna do that. Okay. The U is long because it's the first vowel. Okay. This U has to be long because it's followed by a G and an N, which means this U has to be long because it's followed by an S and a P. I don't know about this A or this A, but this E here has to be long. All right. And when you get to this point, you can go, okay, I've got this foot here. And then look at this, and you have long mark, 2 vowels, long mark, 2 vowels. And that really does set you up for a real nice dactyl, spondy, dactyl. Okay. That was nice. All right, let's look here. Next one. Always start with your dactyl spondy. Oh, only I messed that up. Hold on. I just didn't even see the vowel. Guys, it has been a rough week, right? Like, what is it about this week and last week? All right, here. So this A has to be long because it's followed by an S and a T. This E has to be followed long because it's followed by an N and S. Remember, H doesn't count. I did forget to scan for elisions. I'm not following my own rules. I don't see any elisions. I don't see any other diphthongs. All right, let's just keep going. This A has to be long. This U. Words that end in U are long anyway. Like O and U, they're all long. Okay, and it has to be long. But there's a couple of reasons. We don't know about this A. We don't know about this A, but this E has to be long. We know this U has to be long because it's followed by two or more, and this Et has to be long. All right, now I can do this. I can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need one more. And luckily I have exactly 2 vowels to make a dactyl. All right, let's look at this again. Remember, start at the back. Dactyl, I'm sorry, spondydactyl. Or in this case, remember the dactyl is the one that looks like the finger of poetry. Spondy is 2 longs. All right, so E, I don't know about, but this I has to be long. Oh, I'm doing it again. Hold on, scan for elision. No elision, no diphthongs. Okay. I don't know about this I or this A or this A, but this E has to be long because of the X and dextra. This A has to be long because it's followed by an M and a D. This U has to be long in nunc. Okay, now I would then start putting in my short marks because I'm like, okay, long mark, 2 vowels, long mark. That screams dactyl to me. And then you have these 2 vowels here, spondy. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. You need 6. Oof. All right. This E has to be long because it's marked between 2. Now I'm left with 3. All right. The only foot that takes 3 vowels is a dactyl. So you're going to go long, short, short. And that's how you figure that out. Okay, we're going to do one more. Okay, again, you're ending here. You're going to do this one. Okay. Don't forget there's an I there. Okay, you're going to look for elisions. I don't see any elisions, although there was some good vowel placement in here. No elisions. We know this E has to be long because it's followed by an X. We know the AU is a diphthong. Okay. I don't see any other diphthongs or elisions. Now, this E is not forced long. So remember, et and que are kind of 2 nice words because they're always short. Remember, use don't count. They're always short unless they're forced long. So when you look up here, there was an et. See how that is followed by a T and an N? So the double consonant rule comes in and it's forced to be long. You can force a short vowel long, but you cannot typically force a long vowel short. Okay. So I know that this E is short, which is going to help me. And that does work because I'm not sure about this U, but this A has to be long, right? Because it's followed by an R and a C. Look at this A, we don't know. This O, we don't know. But this umero, the O is at the end of the word. So I would go ahead and just mark that one long. Okay. What am I doing? I'm marking the rest of my vowels. Hold on, here we go. Sorry, guys. Miss Campbell is operating at like, I don't know, impulse power today. Okay, so that works out. We make this short, short. That works out. This is going to be this, and then a there. All right. Here we go. All right. So we've got our dactyl and our spondy. This U is forced long. This E is forced long. There's an elision here. Drop the O. You can get rid of that QU. Get rid of the U after Q. That's yum. That's a J. I think I told you guys that in class. And then there's an elision here. Okay, so we know this. We know this I has to be long. This A is long. Okay, etsyam, this A is long, which means this I is long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need and that works. Okay. All right, I'm gonna do one more line. Okay. And then you guys can always email me with questions. So here, get this. Remember, you're always going to end with your dactyl spondy. So you have dactyl spondy. All right, scan for elision. No elision. Scan for diphthongs. Don't see any. All right, then you need to start marking all your vowels that are long by position. Okay, so they're marked by. Now, don't let the fact that this IE, it doesn't matter that they're two vowels in the same line, or even that they're two vowels in the same word, or even that they're two vowels together. Just treat each vowel like its own thing. Fugientia. All right. Just every vowel is a syllable. Don't let it freak you out. All right. Converso. It ends in O, so it's probably long. This E is followed by an R and an S. O followed by an N and a V. A's are 50-50 shots. We don't know for sure that that one's long or short. Don't know, but we know this I is long. Okay. And then what you really want to do is sort of go in and say, all right, long mark two vowels, long mark two vowels. I bet those are dactyls. That's a spondy. Gives me a dactyl, and bada bing, bada boom, bibbidi bada bee boo, line is scanned. Okay. Tricky bits. The tarpeia, this is a J. It's either a J or an EI diphthong. EI and EU are not diphthongs that I've mentioned. They can be diphthongs. EU is very rare. It's very rare, but it does show up in the odd Greek name. EI is a little more common, but it's really tricky. You just don't see it very often. So I didn't mention it because you just don't see it except in this ridiculous thing that I gave you. Let's see, because there's one here. Brachia. There again, what you're seeing is in these Greek names or in those Etruscan names, these EIs, EUs show up and they can be a real pickle. So honestly, I would suggest don't even do this line because it's going to sort of break all the rules that I've taught you. You're not ready for that line, so don't worry about that line. Tuliaque ariantum. You guys can do that now that you know that tarpeia is a J. I think the rest of this isn't too bad. Don't let all the weird views freak you out. Don't forget here that if a word begins with an I and is followed by a vowel, it is in fact a J. Okay. That is kind of what happens here with a tarpeia. But again, that only really happens in Etruscan names. You don't normally see that, so that's kind of a wackadoodle little thingy there. And then with this one, Juantis. Okay, so it's not Eontis. It's not that I. It's a J. Juantis. All right. I will post the key to the rest of this. I'm not gonna scan all of it with you because my guess is you're not gonna watch it. But I will post this video and I will post the scansion key, and then you guys can check yourselves. Email me if you have any questions. All right, and we'll practice some more tomorrow.